Let us walk you through the Sam Sheppard case. On Sunday, July 4th, 1954, Marilyn Sheppard was found beaten to death in hers and Dr. Sam Sheppard's bedroom. Having slept on the daybed in the living room downstairs, Dr. Sheppard woke up to his wife screaming his name and ran upstairs where he found what he described as a white form standing next to his wife's twin bed. After fighting with the form, which Sheppard described as tall and bushy-haired, a couple of times, once in the bedroom and the other by Lake Erie, and losing consciousness both times, he phoned the mayor at 5:40 a.m. when he came to. But he was unable to provide many details, which he attributed to the fact that he had lost consciousness. By 6 a.m., the Bay Village police had arrived at the Sheppard home. Marilyn's body was found lying face up in her twin bed with her face turned towards the door. Her face and scalp had over 20 gashes, making her almost unrecognizable. Blood outlined her body, staining the bed cover and pillow. The walls and closet doors also had dozens of spots of blood. An autopsy revealed that her time of death was around 4:30 a.m. She was also found to be 4 months pregnant. The Sheppard home appeared to have been robbed, with Dr. Sheppard's black medical bag's contents being spilled out in the hallway. In the den, some of Marilyn and Sam's trophies were also scratched and broken on the floor. However, the coroner grew suspicious of Sheppard once he arrived on the scene, as it was not apparent that there had been a forced entry. Assuming it was a domestic homicide, the coroner devoted less effort to recovering fingerprints and blood evidence than what would be expected of a typical investigation. Dr. Sheppard's clothes were gathered, including his shoes, belt, boxer shorts, and pants, which had a large blood stain on the left knee. Pretty soon, the public became obsessed with the Sheppard case, and soon enough, the press grew increasingly hostile towards Sheppard. Because Sheppard was the prime suspect, investigators looked for a motive. The favorite theory was that Sam was having an affair with a nurse from Bayview Hospital, which Sam denied, but the nurse came forward and confirmed it was true. On July 30th, 1954, at 10:30 p.m., police arrested Dr. Sheppard for the murder of his wife, Marilyn Sheppard. On August 16th, Sheppard was released from jail on $50,000 bail, but a grand jury returned a first-degree murder indictment against him, and he was rearrested. They really couldn't let our man be free. The trial of Sam Sheppard opened on October 18, 1954. The trial was anything but a fair one, with Judge Edward Blythen holding a prejudgment against Sheppard and him denying the defense's motion to move the trial out of Cleveland, as well as delay the trial until publicity around the case died down. Not to mention, the jury was already familiar with many of the facts and rumors surrounding the case. The coroner also testified, claiming that he could make out the impression of a surgical instrument and a blood stain on the pillow, which the defense demanded be stricken from the record. However, Judge Blythen denied the motion. The coroner also revealed that Sheppard's watch was splattered with blood, which he believed was a result of Sheppard beating his wife to death. Fingerprint expert Jerome Paul King testified that the only fingerprint he recovered from the bedroom was identical to the left thumb of Sam Sheppard on the headboard of Marilyn's bed. However, this thumbprint could have been there well before the murder. Later, Sheppard testified, but his language did not seem to reflect how a man whose wife had been murdered would feel and think, which made the jury very skeptical. The verdict was as follows. We find the defendant not guilty of murder in the first degree, but guilty of murder in the second degree. And with that, Judge Blythen sentenced Sheppard to life with his first eligibility for parole in 10 years. However, some new developments were made as Dr. Paul Kirk, who is a respected California criminalist, conducted a thorough investigation of the Sheppard home and published a report concluding that the murderer was left-handed. In November of 1959, however, a break for Sheppard came through in an unlikely way. Richard Eberlein, who was a man who washed windows at the Sheppard home around the time of Marilyn's murder, was arrested for larceny, and through a search of his home, police found many stolen items, including a cocktail ring owned by Marilyn Sheppard. Now, one police officer asked Eberlein why his blood had turned up in the Sheppard home in 1954, despite the fact that no such finding had been made. Eberlein answered that he had cut himself while removing storm windows at the home a couple of days before Marilyn's murder and dripped blood throughout the house. In February of 1966, the High Court heard oral arguments in the Sheppard case, and about 3 months later, with a 8-1 vote, the Supreme Court reversed the Sixth Circuit and reversed Sheppard's conviction on the grounds that the publicity surrounding the trial prejudiced Sheppard's right to a trial by an impartial jury. The second trial of Sam Sheppard began on October 24, 1966, in the courtroom of Judge Francis Talty. Unlike the previous judge, Talty made sure that the decorum prevailed and that nothing would be tolerated that might recreate what happened in the previous trial. In the new trial, the prosecution questioned Mary Cohen, who was the chief medical technologist in the case, about blood spots found on Sam Sheppard's watch. Cohen had testified that a couple of blood spots on the rim of the watch were blood splatter, the product of flying blood, which could have presumably only have been there if Sam were the murderer. The defense attorney, however, had a counter to this testimony. The defense attorney enlisted his forensic expert, Dr. Paul Kirk, to examine color photographs of the watches. On the stand, Kirk testified that, for the most part, it looked like contact transfer. Kirk explained that the tadpole-shaped spots along the watch's rim suggested flying blood, but the lack of symmetrical tail left the tissue in doubt. Unlike in the previous trial, the new defense attorney for this case decided to focus heavily on blood evidence, which he argued cleared his client. The defense attorney also questioned Dr. Paul Kirk about the pattern of blood around the murder room, which seemed to radiate out from Marilyn's head. Kirk testified that the pattern suggested the killer was left-handed, whereas Sheppard was right-handed. Kirk also testified that his analysis showed that the largest blood spot in the bedroom, one found on a closet door near Marilyn's bed, was type O. However, both Marilyn and Sam both had type A blood. And as of November 16, 1966, Sam Sheppard was a free man.